Good Monday morning to you. Welcome back. I hope your teams did well this weekend, but we'll dig in and take a look. To start with, let's remember what the CFP voters did, because definitely their votes seem to be influencing the AP voters. I'll look at it from a matchup point of view. The biggest game of the weekend has to be the Georgia-Tennessee game. Tennessee loses by 13 and falls 3 positions. I think that's a bit of a gift. When else do you lose by 2 possessions and only fall 3 positions from your prior ranking, even if you were number one playing number two? The other big matchup was the LSU Alabama game. LSU climbs a ton on a 1 point victory. This tells me these guys were evenly matched. I would have preferred to seen this be LSU 9, Alabama 10, maybe 10 and 11 with that situation. But I think you see the CFP voters now having influence on the AP, as LSU was already ranked 10th in the CFP. So I think our AP voters started with number 10 in mind as the starting place. The big loser on the day has to be Clemson. They lost to unranked Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame does find their way into the top 25, but a 21-point loss to them drops them 7 positions. They could have fallen more. I mean, all I can say here is if they would have had this game the first week of the season, the rest of their record would have had them probably 7th or 8th by now. Looking at the rest of the table, we've got Ohio State and Michigan at 2 and 3, TCU at 4 and still undefeated, Oregon, Southern Cal, and UCLA all with 1 loss coming in at 6, 8, and 9. And here's where I think this 2-loss LSU, 2-loss Alabama, they should have been clumped below these Pac-12 schools, in my opinion, until some of these tiebreakers and matchups have been had. Ole Miss has a bye, and they stay at number 11. And here's the one that really starts to get me. Utah wins by 25, and they fall 1 position in the AP poll. This would not happen if they were in the Big Ten or the SEC, maybe even not the ACC. I think this can only happen if you're a Big 12 or a Pac-12 school at this time. Please help me make sense of this next portion of the program. You have unranked teams coming in here just randomly, if you ask me. Texas has a 7-point victory over number 13 Kansas State, and they come in ahead of Notre Dame, who has a 21-point victory over number 5 Clemson. I don't even know how that's possible or how it makes sense in anyone's head. The only possible explanation that I have is when I look at the CFP table to our lower right here, I see that Texas was ranked 24 in the CFP and Notre Dame wasn't ranked at all. Maybe that's where the discussion started or position started in everybody's head. But like, this does not pass the smell test when you get right down to it. Another oddity or irregularity is Washington is only a 2-loss team, yet they come in behind both of these 3-loss teams. And then just rounding out the top 25, we've got Florida State blowing away Miami by 45, and they get the number 25 slot. If I look at who dropped the most in the table, it's Illinois and Kansas State. Kansas State drops 10 positions on the table with their loss to Texas this past weekend. Illinois likewise dropped 7 after losing to Michigan State. The rest of it is really par for the course. You've got Penn State climbing 2. You've got North Carolina climbing 2. Tulane up 3 positions after beating Tulsa. And North Carolina State up 4 positions with their victory over Wake Forest. Liberty matches that, climbing 4 with a victory over Arkansas. And finally, UCF goes up 3 positions after beating Memphis. Looking at the AP by conferences and seeing who has the representation, the Athletic Conference remains the Group of 5 conference that has representation in it with Tulane and UCF. Tulane is doing quite well. I really hope they can make their way into some sort of New Year's 6 bowl bid. The FBS Independents got Notre Dame to join their ranks. And the Big 12 had some changes with Oklahoma State dropping out, but Texas coming in. In the Pac-12, we lost Oregon State, but gained Washington, so they'll continue with their 5. And in the Big 10, it's still the same 4, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Illinois. We did see some changes in the ACC. I'd said it last week, both Syracuse and Wake Forest had been on the verge of dropping out. I'm not sure what's gone wrong with their programs the last couple of weeks, but they both drop out, and Florida State comes in with their big win over Miami. And then that leaves us with the 5 teams in the SEC: Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss. I don't see any real danger for any of these. They're all ranked between 1 and 11. This is my computer modeling. I call it the resume rankings. It only looks at games played and tries to make some prediction as to who's played the toughest schedule and who's basically got the best record against that schedule. For the first time this year, Georgia aligns with the #1 team. They've definitely been up near the top multiple times, but I think this is their first time in my #1 position. TCU's had my #1 position many times, and they have flip-flopped just a little bit. One might ask why Tennessee isn't lower given they just lost. Well, truth of the matter is the computer doesn't care if you lost in September or you lost this week. It just calculates the number of points for the game. And Tennessee's had a pretty good schedule up to this point, and this only lost against Georgia. It just isn't affecting the overall score considering they've beat 3, 4, 5 other ranked teams throughout the year. Some other points I would make: Alabama definitely getting punished probably more than they deserve to in this. Don't really think Alabama's number 23, but my computer does at this point in time. Thanks again for watching. Please hit that subscribe button if you're interested in more college football.